step one is when you think you are in a mutually beneficial relationship with a narcissist, with a psychopath. Now, we're talking about a covert narcissist, a covert psychopath, the dark triad. You know, the psychopath, the individual who's both a psychopath and a narcissist, and at the same time Machiavellian, the dark triad. These people, believe it or not, they seem to be everywhere, and they're very good at what they do, and one of the things they do better than anything else is deception. So the first thing they do, of course, you probably already know this because you've experienced it, and that is they blindside you through grooming, through love bombing, and you think, okay, we have a mutual beneficial relationship here, mutually beneficial, I should say, relationship here, and we got each other's back, you know? If you're in a love relationship, you think, man, I found the perfect man, perfect woman, as the case may be. If it's a friendship, you think, yeah, this is a guy that I can depend on, that I can trust in, and we're going to get along just fine. I mean, we're just going to be the best friends. And you honestly believe that because that is the spell that the psychopath has cast upon you. Now, we're not talking about a literal spell. I mean, some people believe in that, by the way, so if you want to believe in it, okay, I'm fine with that. But I'm talking about psychological deception. These people, they just do it innately. It's not like they took a class in college how to deceive people, but they just know how to do it. And if they're really good at it, these are the people who become cult leaders. Now stop and think about any cult you can think of. Virtually every single one of them has this thing in common, and that is they are all led by a charismatic individual who also happens to be a psychopath, who happens to be a narcissist, who happens to be so self-centered that he is Machiavellian. It's all about him. So why do people follow him? Well, again, because he or she, these people, they're just very gifted at deception, at making people love them and follow them. So step number one is you think you were in this, if it's a cult, you think you're in this great movement. But we're talking primarily about one-on-one relationships. So same thing. It's just like a cult, only just you. As far as you know, there are probably other people as well, but you think it's a one-on-one relationship. So, okay, step one is you're caught in the spell. What happens then? Well, step number two is this. You begin to make small compromises. Now, once again, I want to draw the comparison between a person who is in a cult and a person like you who is caught up with an individual who is just scamming you and you don't know it yet. So, yeah, they've groomed you, you're their buddy, you're their love interest, and you start noticing these little small compromises. And you excuse them because, well, you know, nobody's perfect. Everybody's going to make mistakes now and again. Everyone has a little bit of selfishness in them. And these thoughts start running through your mind. It's not quite the person that you thought this person was, and so you give them a pass. But that original impression that the psychopath, the narcissist put in your mind still permeates your mind, and that is the person you identify. And this other person who is starting to emerge very slowly, you see that as an anomaly. At least that's been my experience. I'm pushing 70 years old, and I've learned a thing over these decades. I'm just sharing with you some of the ideas, some of the things that I've learned, some of my experiences, some of my opinions. You can take them for what they're worth, but I hope you can get something good out of this. So you begin making these little compromises, and with your compromises, you begin surrendering judgment. A better way to say that, I think, is you begin to relinquish judgment to the psychopath, to this one man, or if you're a woman, one woman cult leader. Little compromises, little surrenders, just, giving them the reins of your life, but you're not giving them full control. But you're caught up in this one-person cult, or maybe it's a full-blown cult, who knows? And you start seeing the light of day, you think, and it starts making perfect sense to you, even though to people outside the cult or people who are looking at you in this one-on-one cult, they're wondering, geez, what's this guy getting caught up in? Does he really know what he's doing? But we don't listen to them because, well, we are experiencing it. We know what it's all alike. Now, I got to say this, that if you are in that position, you don't notice it. You don't see it. And again, I like to draw the comparison one more time. I like to draw the comparison between a cult and a one-on-one relationship with a narcissist, with a psychopath. Please do not lose that analogy, because effectively, as far as I can tell, they're basically the same. Now, I mentioned earlier in another video that when you like our videos and when you leave comments, that it has an impact on the algorithm at YouTube. Let me just show you what happens. Now, our YouTube channel is, well, by YouTube standards, it's tiny. I mean, it's just like just beginning. But here's a video a couple days ago. Today's the 9th, so this was 2 days ago. We released a video, and typically after 7 hours, we would have 60 to 100 views. But because people began leaving comments and liking the video, giving it a thumb up, it impacted, or at least it coincided with impacting the algorithm, and suddenly we had 203. I mean, that's more than double the views. So the reason that I say that is when we ask you to leave comments, to make or to give a thumbs up, yeah, it does affect the algorithm. And if we could get people to do that, I'm not talking about just leaving a comment to leave a comment. You can do that if you want to, but I'm talking about communicating with other people who are viewing. If you have some ideas that I haven't shared, maybe you can augment some of the things that I've shared. Yeah, that helps out a lot. So step number 3 is this. You begin to totally lose your direction. So let's say that you are taking a walk in the woods and you're with your friend, right? You're with your buddy, you're with your pal, with your love interest, whatever. 2 of you taking a walk through the woods. I used to go out hiking all the time. It was almost like 3 or 4 times a week. I'd head out to the state park, which is not far from where I live, and I just love to take a walk. It was good exercise. And I recall one time I was out there taking a hike, and the trail came to a divide. And everyone who has experienced hiking this state park knows if you turn to the right, you get yourself in mud. I mean, it's by a creek and it overflows. It's just a mess. Nobody goes that way unless they like to get in the mud. The other way, to the left, well, you got to go up a hill. So most people prefer to climb the hill than to walk through the mud. And there was a couple behind me, a guy and his girlfriend or whatever, maybe it's his wife, I don't know. Could have been a sister, as far as I know. And they were trying to decide which way to go. And the woman just made up her mind. Let's go this way. Had no idea. And I told him, I overheard him, and I said, you don't want to go that way because, it's a mess. And it's kind of like some people, you give them advice and they want to do just the opposite because they don't like to be told what to do. And I understand that. I'm the same way sometimes. But anyhow, she determined, she purposed, now we're going to go this way. And the guy just kind of shrugged his shoulders, or whatever. He didn't really care, so he just followed her, So it's kind of like that psychopath narcissist in your life. You just follow them. Say, well, what's the big deal? Let them take the lead now and again. Perfectly okay with that. And about 10 minutes, I was climbing up the hill, and I could hear him in the distance. She was not happy. I can't say she was screaming, but she was very vocally expressing her displeasure with the mess they got themselves in. So that's kind of an analogy, what it's like when you are with a psychopath narcissist. They will lead you. You make these small compromises, no big deal. Okay, so they want to take the lead. Whatever, we're in a mutual relationship, right? But what happens is they keep getting you stuck in the mud. And they never admit it. They just keep on going. This is the right way to go because it's my decision. So we got to be really careful when we begin to compromise our judgment. Because what happens is they lead us in the wrong direction. And when they do that, you lose your sense of direction. Back to the cults. One of the things you'll notice about cult members is you're wondering, as you watch these people, think of just any cult that you can think of. Most of them are religious, some of them are political, whatever. And you wonder, how can any sane person believe that? Maybe you've been in a cult at one time. How did I believe that? You're telling yourself or asking yourself, how can they be so misled? Well, the same thing is true when you're following a psychopath narcissist. How could I be so misled? Well, now you're way out on the trail. You don't know your way back, right? In life, this person is making all your decisions for you, and you are so out of it, you don't know what the right direction is. I like to say when you lose your compass, any direction can be north, right? So you're following the narcissist because you made little compromises and you made more and more and more until they're in charge of your life. They're controlling your life. And now you're wondering, how did that happen? How did I get here? And you didn't notice it because, remember the story of the frog? I don't like the story, but the story of the frog who got in the water and they turned up the temperature. Well, now it's boiling and you're thinking, no, this is not right. But you're lost. You're lost out in the woods. You have lost your sense of direction. You start looking at maybe your friends and family members, and you're wondering, they're not in the mess I'm in. How did I get myself in this mess with this psychopath, with this narcissist? How did this happen? And it goes back to what we said at the very onset, because they're just deceptive. I mean, typically they're very charismatic people, and they're just good. They have a gift, if you want to put it in those terms, a talent for leading people astray to their advantage. That's the whole thing, is they want supply out of you. But that would simply mean they want you to supply them with an ego enhancement. Inflate their ego. That's what they're all about, using you to inflate their ego. That's pretty much it. All right. So here you are. You have totally lost your sense of direction. And step 4 is you realize you are way off track. I mean, way off track. So what happens? And again, using the cult analogy that we just said a second ago, you see people in cults. Man, these people believe the most bizarre things. How did they get that far off track? I mean, what is wrong with them? Are they insane or what? And it seems like they are. Now you're finding yourself in that exact same position, only it's not a cult, it's just one person who's been misleading you all this time. So let's go over this one more time. Step 1, you think you're in a mutually beneficial relationship. Step 2, you start making small compromises. Step 3, you lose your sense of direction because you're following the psychopath. You're following the narcissist. Step 4 is you realize now that you are, oh man, you're lost in the woods. You're way off track. Okay, so what is step 5? Step 5 is this. Step outside and look at yourself. Now, this obviously is a mental exercise, but what I like to do sometimes is I like to just stop and think, how am I coming across to other people? Or if I were someone else, what would be my impression of me? Or probably the preferred way to look at it is, if I were someone else, how would I look at me? Or how would I rather look at that other person? So if you are in a relationship and you're with a narcissist and now it suddenly dawned on you that you are, figuratively speaking, lost in the woods because you've been following this goofball. That, by the way, goofball is not a clinical term, but, I think the clinical term is moonbat, but whatever, you're following this person. So the thing to do, or this is what I do, just giving you not advice, but my opinion. What I do is I imagine that I am another person looking at me, or that I am me looking at another person. The real me is the other person. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? And you wonder, why is it that other people think that people in cults are crazy? Because they've been misled, because they've been lost, because they have lost their own compass. They have lost their own direction. They don't know which way is north. And so whatever the cult leader tells them is north, that's north. And whatever the psychopath or the narcissist tells you is north, that to you is the right direction. That is north to you. Get outside, look at yourself, and getting your bearings, what you got to do at that point, not easy. is just walk away. You got to get yourself back on track, because the narcissist is not going to help you. Now, sometimes there are other people who will help you. Sometimes there are other psychopaths, other narcissists who pretend to help you and they just take you down their path. Got to be careful. You got to learn, at least I've had to learn, to think for myself. Sounds simple, right? Sounds simple, but it's not nearly as simple as we think, because we think that the narcissist's thoughts were our thoughts. At the time, it seemed to be logical, reasonable. Okay, we can see what they're saying here. Yeah, we follow them. There are 2 rectangles on the screen. If you want our conversation to continue, we have dozens and dozens and dozens of videos. So if you want to do some binge watching, just click one of those 2 videos and we'll keep on hanging out together. But if not, thanks for stopping by, and we will see you all next time.